PapaKennMedia.
Hello everyone and welcome to
Papa Ken Reviews, X-Men, Days of Future Past.
And obviously today I'm going to be reviewing the sequel to X-Men First Class, which was the reboot of the pre-existing story of the X-Men movies that occurred before, but it wasn't really a reboot, it was more of a prequel. But then after this movie, well, that would be a spoiler. But let's just say that it is the sequel to X-Men First Class, which I personally found to be the best X-Men movie I had seen at the time. And, well, I won't mask any of my feelings here. There will be some very slight spoilers in this review, but I'm going to avoid really anything that you don't learn within the first few minutes, basically. But if you don't want any spoilers, just know this. I really like this movie. It's worth seeing. Go check it out. Now, if you want to know my full thoughts, let's get right into it, starting with the good. Number one, the main casting characters. Now this movie brings together a lot of people from both the original X-Men series movies as well as the new, being X-Men First Class, and sort of bringing them together in this time-travel-y, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, whatever the Doctor Who quote is. But I just feel like everyone here did a really good job, especially James McAvoy as the young Professor Xavier, and, well, even Patrick Stewart as the older Professor Xavier. Both of them together, it's like, just did a really good job, and as you can see from one of the trailers, there is a point at which they basically come face to face, and that interaction was really strong. And as always, you know, we have Wolverine, one of the by far favorite characters both in the comics, in the movies, and pretty much anything else X-Men related. It's just, he's the best known character, but he's not the center of this movie. And I'll actually touch on that in a little bit. But really just overall, you know the cast. Oh, and well, obviously I can't forget Miss Jennifer Lawrence. Amazing job as Mystique. I really feel like, even though I felt she did a good job as Mystique or slash Raven in First Class, she really stepped it up in this movie and did a great job. But as I was getting ready to say, just the whole cast throughout the entire movie does a really good job. I can't think of any really poor performances, especially as far as the main cast goes. One side note though, whoever it was that played President Nixon, the face makeup could have used some work, just saying. Number two, the story. Now, I'm a fan of comics. I've read a lot of the comics. I have not actually read the story from the comics that is Days of Future Past, which is apparently actually only a it's 2 issues long in the comics, and it's not Wolverine that goes back in time. It's actually Kitty Pryde. So originally, the story was supposed to be a Kitty Pryde story, which she is in this movie, but not in that central of a character, or she's not that much of a central character. But really, overall, the story is really good. They really did their work in adapting it for this film, and even though they made those changes, I mean, just reading up on what I did, I felt like the choices they made were very intelligent and very thoughtful, and I really liked the direction they took it in, so good job on story. Number three, the action. Now, I will say this, there isn't a ton of action in this movie. It isn't, let's just say it's more drama-driven, it's more of a story-driven movie. But when the action is there, it is absolutely phenomenal. Special effects are put to very good use. And in fact, there's points where the action just gets downright brutal. I can't remember what the movie rating on this is. I want to say PG-13. Let me just say that this definitely isn't a movie for very young kids. I'm sure that there's a lot of young kids out there that are fans of X-Men. I know I was. But there's certain points in this where, even though there's not blood, it's pretty gruesome what you actually see on screen. especially when it comes to the Sentinels attacking mutants. I won't give any of that away, but it's some very intense action when it is occurring on screen. Number 4, Wolverine is not the main character, as I mentioned before. He's definitely the sort of the driving force of the movie. He is the connection between the past and the future. So he is central in that point of view, but more than anything, I feel that this movie was Mystique's story, or Raven's story. And of course it has a lot to do with Professor Xavier and Magneto as well, but even they are sort of, they're ahead of Wolverine as far as central character goes, but still the story revolves around Raven, I feel. The only problem with that is I don't feel like she had enough scenes. So it's like there's sort of an imbalance there as far as like who I feel the story really revolved around and who really got a lot of screen time, because let's face it, Wolverine, Xavier, and Magneto definitely got the most there. But I just, in my eyes, Raven was the center of the story, and I really liked that, and I really enjoyed the character arc she went on, as well as several others. Number 5, and I guess this is kind of a half and half number 5, kind of cheating, but Blink and Quicksilver. Now, let me just say this right off the bat. Blink, when you get to see how her powers work in this movie, it's absolutely phenomenal. It is some of the most impressive, at least from my point of view, impressive graphics that have been done in any of these X-Men movies. It's some of the most amazing choreography as far as the battles go when she's in them. And I can't remember that actress's name, but she did a really good job. And Blink, without even knowing a lot about her, I mean, I don't even know much about her from the comics, just a phenomenal character that stole the show when she was on screen. And then Quicksilver. There's a whole lot of controversy about, you know, there's Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, and there's going to be Quicksilver in the upcoming Avengers movie, as well as his sister, Scarlet Witch. But Quicksilver in this, I really enjoyed him. He isn't a major part of the story, admittedly. They probably could have incorporated him a little bit more, but for what they did, I feel like they did a really good job. And his segments are, for some people, probably the highlight of the movie, because he, again, like Blink, he really steals the show when he's on screen. Especially this one slow motion segment. I don't know if it's actually been leaked online yet, but if it hasn't been, wait until you see the movie to actually witness this, because it's just lots of fun. Now, there are some people saying that it's like, it's the best part of the movie, or it's so awesome, really overhyping it. Don't let that really seep in. Just like, go in thinking it's going to be cool, but it's not going to blow you away, and then, let it affect you as it will. But I really enjoyed the scene, and it was a lot of fun. And if that's confusing at all, when you see the movie, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, as always, although I have spoken of the good, no movie is perfect, so let's talk about the bad. Number 1, continuity, having to do primarily with Kitty Pryde / Shadowcat, as she's more well known in the comics. Now, the thing is here, I actually did research a little bit about the story, as you know, where I found out that the original comic story revolved more around Kitty Pryde. Well, in that one, she is able to take her own mind, apparently back in time, and I guess possess her past body. I don't know the full details there. But the way they do it in this movie is that she's able to use her powers to sort of take a person, or take a person's mind back to their past life, or like many years ago into their old body. She does that on Bishop at the very beginning of the movie, and she does that to Wolverine, obviously, since he's the one that goes back to the past and tries to get everything moving. Now, my problem with this is, especially if you go into the movie not knowing about this power that Kitty Pryde has in the comics, it's never explained how she's able to do this. We see her phasing through things like she's done in the older movies. We see her doing the whole Shadowcat thing. You know, that's her power. She's able to go through solid objects. But where did this sudden ability to, you know, time trap, make people's brains go back in time come from? Like, even the slightest little bit of explanation would have been nice. Like, you know, just, they could have said, oh, it is just a new part of her evolution as a mutant, or something along those lines. It doesn't take a lot of explanation, but there was none at all. It's just, okay, well, she's able to do this. And for most people, it's probably not going to be a big deal, but if you care about continuity at all, it is a problem. Number 2. Now, as I said before, the action in this movie is awesome. It's some of the best action I've seen in the X-Men movies. However, if you're going into this movie expecting lots of action, to just, like, every, let's say, 10 minutes, like there to be a big fight, it's not going to happen. There's not a lot of fighting in this movie. It is more story-driven. So in that regard, if you go in expecting a lot of action, you're going to be disappointed. And, you know, for some people, like, if that's your personality, like I said, you're going to be disappointed. But if you're able to appreciate the action for what it is, you'll really enjoy that. But I do include that as a bad, just because, you know, with X-Men you expect a lot of action, and it's not really there in this movie, at least not in great quantities. Number 3, Bishop and the other New Mutants basically have we don't get to know them at all. We get some of the absolute bare bones as far as who they are, and we kind of figure out what their mutant powers are by watching. Like, Bishop, he's one of the most prominent characters, especially in the future in the Marvel Universe. It's like, he's a very powerful mutant, and what he does is he actually absorbs energy, like, let's say laser blasts from Sentinels. He's able to absorb that and shoot it back toward the enemies. I can't remember if this was part of the comics or not, but in the movie, he does it through a gun that's attached to him. And then there's Blink, and, you know, like I said, she's one of my favorite new characters in this movie, but we really don't learn much about her other than the fact that she's pretty badass and her powers are cool. And then there's, I'm just going to call him the Human Torch, because I honestly don't know who he is. He's basically just a guy that can all of a sudden go completely on fire and flies around. He's essentially the Human Torch, but not called the Human Torch. I don't think they ever even call him a name throughout the entire movie. And then there's another one who I can't even remember his name in the movie, but his power seems to be the ability to see really far, which, you know, I'm not knocking the power at all, but that's, other than the name, which I forget, it's like he's just not a very prominent character. Like, you know, he obviously doesn't stand a chance against the Sentinels. He's basically their watchman until the Sentinels come and he lets them know, but other than that, he really doesn't serve much of a purpose. So, again, it's just the new characters, and there's some others that I, you know, didn't mention as well, but they're just really underdeveloped, and I would have liked at least a little bit of explanation, a little bit of getting to know who they were in the movie, so that, you know, as people that are brand new to the Marvel Universe and they haven't read the comics would have at least the slightest idea of who these characters are. Now, as for my final thoughts on this movie, I honestly feel that it was probably the best X-Men movie that I have seen so far. I've seen some friends online. I have seen very, very little negative opinion about this movie from anyone that I know. I've seen some people say that it's the best superhero movie they've ever seen. Some people have said it's the best Marvel movie they've ever seen. I would disagree personally. It was really good, but I feel like there are other superhero movies that outclass it in some ways. But again, overall, as an X-Men movie, Days of Future Past is easily #1 in my book. It might I would say First Class would be a very close second. Now that's, again, up till now, New Class was like essentially my new favorite X-Men movie. But now Days of Future Past has definitely taken that spot, and I highly recommend it. Now at this point, the movie has been out in theaters for quite a while. It might not even be showing where you are anymore, but if that's the case, then chances are it's going to be out on DVD before long. And I'm pretty sure that I actually saw on Facebook that there's going to be a director's cut version that's going to have more scenes, possibly more mutants that were, I believe, part of the original filming but not included in the final product. So, you know, if that's the case, I'm looking forward to what I missed out on in the theatrical release. And, you know, more than anything, just watch this movie. Even if you just, again, if you want to rent it before you do anything else once it's out on DVD, do so. But in my opinion, if you're a fan of the X-Men movies at all, this is one that you need to own. It is going to be, it's one that you need to see in theaters if you can, and it's one that you're going to want to own on DVD because it's really just that good. And that's all I have to say. Everyone, thank you very much for joining me on this brand new movie review. It's the first one I've done in months, so hopefully it wasn't too shabby. And I will see you all next time on the next Papa Ken Reviews.